Hello and welcome to Scratch. This first lesson is about getting to know the Scratch program so you can start programming. Let's look at the layout first. This area over here on the left is what's known as the stage. And this is the area that displays your creation. This next area in the middle is what is known as the block palette. Now each of these 10 buttons lets you choose functions called blocks for programming your sprites. You can combine these command blocks into stacks to create programs that control objects on your screen. Now where you will do that is in the scripts area. This area over here on the right. Here's where you build your programs. Stacking blocks together here lets you control the sprites in your project. Up here at the top, you have 3 tabs. You have scripts, which allows you to drag command blocks from the palette and put them together to write a program, like so. When you drag blocks into the scripts area, to join them, you drag it under the one that you want to join it with until you see that white line, then let go and it snaps together. You can move the blocks around if you need to. If you decide you don't want one or want to change the area of one, you can separate them. The way that you do that is click on the one that you want. Let's say if I want the middle one, then I'll click on the bottom one to be able to separate them. You always got to click on the bottom one. Otherwise, or the one underneath, directly underneath the one that you want. Otherwise, it'll just move them around. Okay. The next tab, Costumes, allows you to draw, import, or edit images for a sprite. And the last tab, Sounds, allows you to record or import sound files for a sprite to use. Next, we have a menu. Lets you do different things, such as go to the Scratch website, change the language, save your file, see some tips. We also have a Sprite Toolbar. Now, this is very useful. Allows you to do a number of different things, including duplicate a sprite. So for instance, if I click on this and I come down and I click on the sprite, it now created a second one. Do it again, create another one. This works with code as well. If you have a bit of lengthy code, why write it all again if you can duplicate it and make some changes to it if you need to. We also have the delete button. That'll delete a sprite or cut it out. And we can also do that with specific code. You can also grow a sprite or shrink a sprite. Oops. Okay. Next, we have our play button or full screen button. This is useful when you want to view the project in what I call game mode. It basically maximizes your stage to your whole screen so that you can get the best possible view of your creation. We also have the execution buttons. These buttons do 2 different things. The green flag allows you to start a program, and the red stop sign stops it. Next, down below, we have what's known as the sprite list. And here's where the characters and objects that you've created will be housed. Here we have new sprite buttons. You have 4 choices to create sprites. You can pick one from Scratch's built-in library. You can draw a new one, or you can upload one from a file you already have, or you can take a picture using your camera, your computer's webcam. Alright. Next, this little eye, the top left-hand corner of this scratchy sprite, allows us to see information about the sprite. Things you can see are, first of all, its name. I'm going to go ahead and change that to Scratchy. Lets you see the position of the sprite on your stage, please notice we have an X and a Y coordinate. And when I drag this around, if I go up, please notice that my Y coordinates go up. If I go down, my Y coordinates go down. Also, if I go to the right, my X coordinates go up. If I go to the left, they go down. More on that later. We also see the position that the sprite is facing in. You drag this line to the different degrees, it'll flip Scratchy over, point them in the direction that you specify. We also have rotation style, 3 options. 1, you basically can freely rotate, or he can only face left and right, or if you choose this one, he can not rotate or face left and right, it just stays as he is. Next, below this last option, you can draw. If you click this, you can. This allows you to drag the sprite around when it's in play mode. This can be useful if you want to test something in your project. One more feature you ought to be aware of is if you feel like you're running out of room in your scripts area for code, or you just aren't able to see as much of it as you'd like. If you come to this little arrow right here and click on it, it will decrease the size of your stage, thereby giving you more room in your scripts area. Now that we've learned about layout and basic controls, it's time to start our first project. This first project has to do with reinforcing the concept that I mentioned earlier. It has to do with how the Scratch stage is set up. As you remember, I mentioned that the stage is set up with 2 axes, an X-axis and a Y-axis. To help us, first thing we're going to do is bring in a new stage. So we're going to come down to Stage Backdrop. We're going to click on Choose Backdrop from a library. We're going to scroll down to the bottom, and we're going to select X and Y grid. We no longer need the blank backdrop, so we'll get rid of that one. We'll click on it, and then click on the X, get rid of that. And now, as you can see, this backdrop gives us a nice layout that depicts what is actually going on with regards to coordinates. So we've got our X-axis, which is horizontal. 0 is in the middle. All the way to the left is -240. All the way to the right is 240. We've got our Y-axis, which is vertical or up and down. All the way to the top is 180. All the way to the bottom is -180. And then we've got some incremental distances, like 100 and 200. All right, so what we're going to do in this project is get Scratchy to draw a square for us, a perfect square, using the 100 marks. So basically, Scratchy's going to start right here in this corner, come over to this corner, come down, come over, and then come back up again. He's going to draw this for us. Now to do this, we have to set up some commands. So we're going to use, in this instance, the glide blocks. So what this block is going to do, what this command will do, is it'll glide over the time we specify to the X coordinate that we specify to the Y coordinate that we specify. So the very first one that we're going to have him glide to is X -100, Y 100, which, as it turns out, intersects right here. So that'll be the first coordinate. Okay, so let's go ahead and punch that in right here. We've got X -100, and we've got Y 100. And the glide time, will make it pretty short. We'll do 0.1 seconds. Now, I'm going to want, let's test this. Double click on this and it just glides right there. Now, in between each of the travel paths, I'm going to have a little bit of time that goes delay. So I'm going to go to Control, and I'm going to tell it to go ahead and wait 1 second in between each one. All right. So since each of our coordinates is going to have to do with some version of 100, I'm just going to duplicate this. So duplicate, duplicate, okay, and I'll snap them together when the time comes. All right, so the second coordinate that we're going to want to put in is right here, and that would end up being 100, 100. So let me get rid of the minus sign. That's 100, 100. Third coordinate will be right down here, this intersection, and that is x 100, y negative 100. So switch this around, x 100, y negative 100. And the next coordinate will be negative 100 for x, negative 100 for y. And let's see what that gets us. Well, got to snap them together before I can do that. But that'll get us right here. I know that. But to bring it back, we need to put in another glide block with this coordinate. So what I'm going to do is simply just duplicate this first one, bring it down to the bottom. Now we're ready to snap them together. And if we double click, there we have it. Scratchy's making a perfect square for us. Now, to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and put a forever command in this, a loop, so that it does it endlessly. And then we'll go to the events button and we'll put a hat on top of this, which when we click the green flag will start the project. So we'll go ahead and try that. And there we see Scratchy doing his thing. Okay. Next, let's get Scratchy to actually draw his path. Now to do this, we're going to need to go to the pen button, and we're going to need to choose a couple of blocks. I'll pull them out first and then I'll snap them. So we're going to start with a clear block. This will clear out any other drawing that's in there, so that we can always start with a fresh canvas. We're going to also bring out a set pen color 2, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Then we'll drag out a set pen size 2, and I'm going to set that to start off at pen size 10. And then lastly, we'll bring down out a pen down button. Okay, now I'm going to bring these up, snap them in up here. Now, let's see what we've got. Now we've got Scratchy drawing in green. Now I'm going to start it again. You see that line that it drew? I'm going to show you a little way to fix that. Come back to the motion. If I tell Scratchy to go ahead and just go to this first coordinate before it does anything else, and as you remember, that first coordinate is negative 100 by 100, then before it does anything else, any of this other stuff, it will go straight to this spot, so that when I click start, it just goes right there before it does anything else. So we're never left with that funny line. Alright, now back to setting the pen color. If you click in this color, in this block where it says set pen color 2, it sort of acts as a sampler, a color sampler, and any place I go to that has a color will give us the option of making that the color. So I'm going to start with red. The only place on the screen that has red is the stop sign, so I'll use that. So now when I click start, that's what we get. Okay, let's add one more script that'll make our sprite do something interesting. If we go back down to the pen button and we find change pen color, where is that? Drag it out, go to the control button, find a forever block, and then let's go to events and we'll put a hat on that, and watch what happens when we click start now. Scratch does its thing, but it changes its pen color as it goes along. Okay, that's our first project. Good luck.